that Kenya has a number of 46,639 street families and street children, out of which 72.45% are male and an additional 27.65% being female. There are a number of challenges. The right of children in Kenya is protected against all manner of violence, and that is enshrined in Article 53 of the 2010 Constitution. Additionally, the country has also ratified, among others, the Children's Rights Convention of 1989, African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Good morning. This is KBC and this is News Check. That is a discussion that we will be having right here, and we would like you to be part of it. Remember, we are live on all our socials, including our website at www.kbc.co.ke, where you can follow up on what we are discussing and also get what is trending or what is being covered in the country. My name is Njue. Thank you so much for joining us. Lucy Mwaura is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. And of course, in the second hour, we'll be looking at the truce. After the truce between the two leaders, how are things progressing? Is Wanjiko also remembered in the truce as well? We'll be discussing that a little bit later. But for this first hour, let's look at street families. And joining me on set now is Jack Matika. Jack Matika works for Koinonia community that is here in Nairobi. They have branches in Dagoretti, Ngong, and also in Rongai. Good morning, Jack, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, my brother.
Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
I'm very much grateful, especially to be hosted at KBC. Yeah. Yes, it has always been my dream to be here, so I'm very much happy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now we are celebrating the International Day for the Street Children, and as Koinonia, you have been here around for a number of years. Maybe you can tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First, as a community, Koinonia community, we are very pleased and very humble to be hosted in KBC. Koinonia community is a lay-based organization that was founded 1997 by a Combonian priest who is more well-known as Father Kizito. So Koinonia community as an umbrella has a various projects within the capital city, that is Nairobi. We have projects in Dagoretti. We have a project at Ngong that is dealing with the girl child. The one in Dagoretti is for a boy child. We have another project that is in Rongai along Ataka Road that is dealing with a boy child. We also have another project that is in Langata, which is dealing with immediate children that we are almost now going to discuss. Those are street family. It is based in Langata. And then we also have a project because as you know, in Kenya we also had we have issues or challenges to do with the children living with disability, and therefore Koinonia community, with this great mission of advocating for the humanity and respect to all, we have a project that basically touching more on the people living with a disability.
And the numbers that we are looking at, over 46,000, and maybe now the numbers are a little bit higher. And the government, of course, tries in as much as they can help. And also homes like Koinonia are trying as much as possible to alleviate this. Because I've seen a number of kids that do escape home following maybe death of their parents. Some run away from violence in their homes. And even others live in the streets simply because their families are too poor to look after them. How does Koinonia now come in?
Okay, first and foremost, I would just want to also thank the government of Kenya. They are really doing great. As you talked about the statistics, the population of this innocent group living homeless in the street of Nairobi and in other counties, I think the government has taken a good step by coordinating with all the stakeholders that are dealing with the street families in the entire nation. And also the good policies of the best practice that the government of Kenya through the State Department, we have very good office, the State Department, which is a Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund, that is very much well coordinating these stakeholders to ensure that the right services is delivered to this innocent population. After saying that, as a community, there are various factors, just like you have said, there are various factors that are push and pull factor to many children that they find themselves in the street. One, as you said, it is poverty. And then sometimes also, my brother, I find domestic violence is also a factor that drive many children that leave their families and say, oh, I want to walk out from this family. Let me find a peace outside. And the street becomes a place for this particular child of 10 years who is tired of seeing mom being beat by his father when the father comes drunk. So that is also domestic violence, one of the factors that we have identified as a community. We have poverty is cutting across. We also have peer influence that also. Koinonia community has a well strategic plan, ways that we have a group of social workers that basically try to follow and bond with this group, this population in the street. And after good bonding, that is when we have opportunities to rescue them out of the kind of life they are living before, which is really pathetic. If you move to a street where you have almost 200 street children staying, these are people, my brother, that know nothing about hygiene. They know nothing about all the kind of drug substance they use. So it is always a mess. But thanks to various institutions, first government and other stakeholders that have best approach to reach them wherever they are, bond with them, and then take them out of this, the street, bring them to a place where they can get basic human rights needs, and then they undergo kind of rehabilitations.
And it's a big community. Looking at the estates that you've talked about, being in Dagoretti, in Ngong, in Rongai.
Oh, yes.
What are the numbers that you are talking about that you have currently?
As a community.
What is the number? Yes, as a community. And how many have you been able to rehabilitate?
Oh, it's really huge. I'll be lying to give you statistics now because we talk of Koinonia being in this mission for almost 35, 40 years.
All right. Let's look at what you have,
now,
the number that you have at the moment.
Okay. At the moment, looking at Kivuli Center, one of the projects that is in Dagoretti, if you go there, we have almost 40 to 55 street family that were rescued out of the street. Now in Kivuli, they are undergoing human formation, and some of them have been already enrolled to different schools. In this particular center, as you said, they are provided with all the basic needs that every child requires in the family. If it is clothes, if it is food, if it is medicals, and then Koinonia community ensure all these are provided to these children. Beside all these kind of services, we also try, the community try to trace the families and relatives of these children that we have, because at the end of the day, family is always the best place for every child to live. So once the community, through social workers and the psychologists, trace the families, and then they get to understand the problem that was there, and then Koinonia community, if it was the issue of poverty, Koinonia community will go there. With the little funding that we have, sometimes we receive from the government of Kenya through the Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund, we are able to provide some start some income generating activity in that particular family for some periods. Once we have seen the family the economical situation is really in a stable, and then we are able to move that particular child from our center and then reunite him back to the family. So that is how we also do our services. The children that are in our center, provided they all go to school in Kivuli, and when they return back to their families, we follow them in education. And Koinonia does not limit that it is only to your primary school. No, Koinonia still journey with you. You want to go to, you are capable to go to university, they take you there. Beside Kivuli, we have Anita that is in Ngong. We can talk about 40 to 45 former street girls that were living in the city center of Nairobi. And this is a group that we find, and we all know, they were as from 10 to 15 years when we go involved in prostitutions. So they are all taken to this particular rehabilitation center. Majority of them are enrolled in different learning institutions. Some are also, we are tracing the family to be reunited. We have one that is also in Rongai. We have 38 to 40 boys. And in this also, they undergo the same rehabilitations, and we provide the same services that we provide to other centers I've mentioned. We have one unique center, and this particular unique center, it is based in Langata, that is in Kibra, and it is the rescue center that most of these children first has to go to, because before you take a child to the center, to this particular home, this has to be a child that had been really prepared psychologically and is not using drugs. So we have a component that's only deal with the rehabilitation. Once the rehabilitation is done well, and then the child is transited now to this home where he can now be enrolled to different schools and is able to cope with the other children. In the issue of the disability, I've talked of a case, they have also an institution that is in Kibera, and now also in Dagoretti, and it's also like we are also going to Kajiado. The issue of disability has been like, if you have a child that is disabled, it's like the family is cast. And there has been a lot of stigmatizations whereby that family no one wants to associate with. Koinonia community comes here to inform the community that living with the disability is not inability. That particular child can also be a leader in future. And therefore the community gives also opportunity and an avenue for this population to be heard of and also be given a space.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you've tackled a number of questions that I wanted to point at you.
Oh, yes.
On matters education, on how these kids have, and you also have an education institution.
Oh, yes.
And also drug abuse, because you cannot mix some of the addicts, and also you have to look after them before you can transit them to the larger community. Now, roughly you have around 200 families from all the communities.
Oh yes. Oh, yes.
And I'm wondering, because at the end of the day, you're just, let's say that's whatever you're doing is just a drop in the ocean.
That is true.
There are a number of institutions as well. What is the criteria that you have that we can take this family but we cannot take this other one?
That basically mean during the time that the rescue is done from different bases within the street level. Oh yes, I want to say people look at the street family as people who has no structure. That is not true. This particular population in the street, wherever they live, they have a structure. And you find in every base there is a leader.
All right. Allow me to interject, but we have to also cross over to the Kenya School of Government.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
In Lower Kabete, and looking at what the president has been talking about, I've noticed that you are nodding to some of the things that he was talking about, meaning that they directly affect you and how you conduct your business. Can you talk about that?
I'm very much happy, and I think our president is a loving president, and I am very optimistic that the issue of the street families, something is going to be done. He talked about when he's talking about the vulnerable, you know, and the structures on how this particular fund is going to be disbursed. I'm very sure the families that where all these children are coming from, now majority will be remaining in those families because they will be having something, you know, in their families. I think that is a plus to the government, and as I said before, the government of Kenya, right now as we talk, they have a very well established state department that under Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund, which is very, you know, very optimistic on how to address this issue of street family. He also talked about Save the Children. Save the Children has been a protagonist in the issue of the right of children. And every time they network with different partners like Koinonia community, engaging on how the issue of street family can be addressed, and also in these institutions, how can the safety of children be assured, you know, and then also the issue of education. Save the Children had been on the forefront of ensuring that children are given opportunities, you know, to go to school, might be a girl child or a boy child. So I think the government of Kenya and the other partners together, as he said, we will see a difference.
So meaning that he has mentioned a number of things that the government will be doing, and Save the Children has really come out. Maybe you can touch on government support. I have been interviewing a number, and I remember interviewing somebody from God Will Provide Children's Home, and he said that he hasn't ever received any help from government or even county governments.
I don't know if that was in the past, but as we talk right now, there's a lot of things, a lot of good policies the government have brought. And these policies are basically helping to streamline, you know, on how the disbursements, on how collaboration and network can be done. I want to be optimistic, and as I said before, that also the government are they are very keen on who, because if you look at the institutions, you talked about the statistics on the number of the children, and then if you ask yourself how many institutions are basically working to address this issue of street families, you'll find there's a lot of institutions, very many institutions, name them. And again, you go and question yourself, ask yourself, out of these thousands institutions, who can you trust? You see, you know, my brother, you'll end up giving money to Jack Matika, who is a briefcase owner, you see.
You have a children's home.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then in the name of helping the street family. So the government is also very careful, you know, to understand who are we, you know, giving fund, you know, to address this issue, to help us address this issue. So I think it's a matter of integrity, it's a matter of transparency and honesty, and to what you do as institution. If you are doing the right thing, the government of Kenya basically, they are good people. They are good, especially.
Still on that,
yes.
Have you received any help from the government?
Oh,
and
yes.
if you have,
oh yes.
On what magnitude?
On what magnitude? Well, we have received good help, especially when you talk about the policies. We work very close with NCCS, National Council for Children's Services, and we work also with the Street Family Trust Fund Board, and not only in terms of money, you know, in terms of policy, what are the best practices? So the governments have opportunities where institutions you are invited, and they get people who will come and do capacity building to your teams, and that is one way of the help we talk about. It should not only be looked at in terms of money, but in various ways. Yes, we have benefited a lot as Koinonia community through capacity building. Also, in monetary, you find they disburse also money to organization. I will name almost like 50 organizations that I know through the Street Fund Trust. They disburse money to. And it is, I'll just talk to you about every institutions working toward the best interest of the people, the vulnerable that our president talked about. You should do it deep to your heart, and be honest and be transparent and carry the integrity with you. With that, you get support, not only in government, but even to your next neighbor. They will come when you lack something. So integrity it matters a lot.
Yes, and we have discussed a lot about finances, and of course the president has touched on a number of issues that border on funds and finances. But there is also another pertinent issue that the street families grappling with.
Oh, yes.
The issue of identity cards. As Koinonia community, how have you been able to deal with this? Because this is something that has risen up over and over again, and the government is trying as much as it can, and it needs help from institutions like yours. How do you deal with the issue of identity cards to children who even don't have families?
This is an issue that we have realized in the last 15, 20 years. And going to the street, you don't only find children, you find youth. So the youth are always left behind, and then children are picked. So what do these youth ask? They only ask you, please, can I get a national identification card? It has been a problem, as you say, and just like you say, other partners have visited and they have counted the same. We want to acknowledge it has been a problem. But as when we started, working very close with the chiefs around government, local administration, we have seen that there is possibility, because you find this youth, they don't have any birth certificate. And how are you recognized as a Kenyan? You must have something to show, that a document to show that you are born here and you are truly a Kenyan. And they like these things. So we get information, we try to go back to their families, rural where they came from. We collect some information back to their families or relatives whom we can find. And then we put them together. As Koinonia community, we write like acknowledgement letter that we recognize this particular young man, and we submit it to the chief. And we have chief, government, local administration that are very much willing to cooperate with you. And they are able to write to us also a government supported document. And this document has helped us to access a good number of ID to the youth. So I think other institutions, partners that are doing the same thing as we do as Koinonia community, I just also encourage them to do the same. Let them work, collect documents that are necessary, and then they work close with the government, local administration, and they will have these possibilities.
And we have seen on social media, TikTok, on Facebook, and also on Instagram, of some of very gifted kids who are still on the streets. And help is not arriving in good time, because these people are gifted as well. But nobody has been able to get them and actually help them do more with their talent. And this is something that is arising each and every time. Look at the social media platform and you will see that. You have some of the gifted kids. I remember you, before we started the show, you were telling me that you have a success story. You have a doctor, a street child you picked up and now is a doctor. Tell us about that.
Oh yes, like you say, this population in the street, people, when you walk in the street, you look at them, you think that this is a burden to the society, and this kind of people should not live. And so you find there's always very big gap, forgetting that these are very talented people and very intelligent people. When you talk about talent, you go to different street bases where these children are. They are talented. There are those that sing well. There are those can do choir in the street. And there are those that are talented in education. And sometimes they ask you, if I'm only given opportunity, I will do the best. And we have children who have now grown, and they are youth, and they are very talented. They do shows. Some of them are musicians. And like we have one humble prince who has gone to Tanzania and met with great artists, and now he's also making a foundation from there, and he will come and do something, very great. And as you said, we have those that have taken education very important, and they have gone to school. We have some that are doctors, and some that are mechanic, and they are involved in different activities that is building the nation. I met with Harrison, who is a doctor and also is working very close with this music, Kubamba, yes, with DJ Mo, and is behind the technical, machines and all this. At the same time, he's a doctor, And I think it is a matter of giving this innocent population an opportunity.
Okay.
Just like the president saying, you know, these vulnerable people, if us, you know, we don't say the president, you know, we keep on saying the president, oh yes, he's in the power to say that need to be done. But I think it is collective responsibility for all Kenyans. You know, he talked about contribution. If we want to see a nation growing to that level, he's not a president in the office too. So all these issues of street families, we Kenyans all together, if we join the force together, we will do it.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, yes. Jack, we are out of time, but I have been speaking with Jack Matika, who is the project manager at Koinonia community, and he has put into perspective a number of issues, and especially the street families are facing. And a good thing that the head of state, during his address at the Kenya School of Government on social protection, he has mentioned a number of things that the government is prepared and has lined up to ensure that we protect the social welfare of not only the street families, but also the elderly, the people with disability, and also the children. We're coming back with more. I'll be now looking at the truce. After the truce, there are a number of issues that we need to be looking at. Of course, they have suspended, Azimio has suspended the nationwide maandamanos, and that has been welcomed. A number of issues that have come up as well. We'll be discussing that coming up next.